The Infrastructure Bank was formerly known as the Urban Development Bank that was privatized. So it's majorly owned by the private sector now, by the Norimbeja Group, and Mofi also has a participating shareholding. So it's a blend of the private sector and the public sector. Talking about green bonds, the major vision of the Infrastructure Bank is to push for renewable energy, is to invest in green projects. And part of the vision, which would probably happen later this year, is to issue a green bond that will be used to finance renewable projects. We're looking at projects like energizing education, energizing health, energizing the telcos, especially the tower companies. We're experts in project preparation, and we're also coming to raise foreign finance for bankable projects. So by saying that we're in a good position to play a key role in climate financing also. How do we do that? Advocacy. One of the major things we're looking at is mostly when you're doing an environmental and social impact assessment, you find out that the focus is to look at how the project impacts the community. But nobody is looking at how the climate impacts the project. And that is also very, very key. So long as you don't look at the effect of the climate on the project, then we're not going to have climate resilient projects. Take for example, one time I remember having a conversation with the governor of Niger State. The road from Abuja to Niger, the soil there is clay, and they continue building asphalt roads because the impact, it's not really assessed. What they should do is build like a concrete road, and that is what is sustainable. So you find out that there's a large cost when you don't look at the impact of the climate on your projects, because you keep building it 5 times, 10 times, and you keep getting it wrong. But if you do it once and you get it right, then a lot of cost is saved, lives are saved because the road is now more trouble. So these are the kind of values that the Infrastructure Bank wants to bring. We want to invest heavily in renewable energy. Solar is inevitable. It has come to stay. I'm sure anybody in Band A here would be happy to go off-grid by deploying solar and lithium batteries. Even filling stations are looking at the option of deploying solar. They mostly work in the afternoon, so they can do solar direct to power their pumps. And I mean, these are businesses that close by 9, 10 p.m., so they have little requirement for energy in the night. So as I said, it's a blend of what the government will do and what the private sector can do. We look up to my brothers here on the left, multilateral finances, where we can build partnerships, and then we can also bring in our expertise and make sure that the resources are deployed in the right session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nasiru. So I already hear a call for partnership coming from you, along with the other panelists on this panel. I'm going to move very quickly to Shaya. Shaya is with Orlon. And Shaya, given Nigeria's need to proactively manage climate risk, how can we put up catastrophic insurance to be effectively integrated into the National Climate Adaptation Plan and public-private partnerships? This question around insurance also came up yesterday. I don't know if you were here. But there was also the call for political risk insurance. But now we're looking at other types of insurance, and I wondered if you can speak to this question.
Okay, great, thanks. Morning, everybody. My name is Shea Basir. Has been mentioned. I lead the investment function at Allon. And Allon is an impact vehicle set up by Shell to reduce the, to solve the energy access problem in Nigeria substantially. Our North Star is by 2030, we want to, through our investments, facilitate 1 million new connections to electricity in Nigeria, especially in underserved or unserved areas. So that means what Allon has been is the largest investment, you would say, the largest investment portfolio, the most active portfolio in renewable energy, energy access in Nigeria. Historically, we've been very flexible in terms of financing. In the past, tickets as little as $50,000, and essentially we've met the industry where it was and have grown. And as the industry has matured, we've been able to, double down and continue to back successful companies from our existing portfolio. Now that they're able to absorb more capital. So for the immediate future, the focus continues to be finding more ways to deliver that energy access across the country. To the question on catastrophic insurance and how it comes into the entire picture for climate resilient infrastructure. So one obvious dimension that I see in the Nigerian context is Nigeria is a federation, which means that a lot of the work that needs to be done has to be done at state level. Whereas a lot of the national plans are being done, very far away from state level. So there's a certain level of mismatch there. Anyway, those states can essentially form some kind of pool, some kind of risk pool, where the circumstance that Okpe mentioned, which is very, very apt with the flooding that occurs virtually across the country. It would cover most of the middle of Nigeria, north to south, and the kinds of impact that has cuts across it. It affects transportation, it affects power plants, it affects agriculture, it affects even the financial sector, it affects markets. So essentially creating a risk, that's a very good example of what you can create as a risk pool with several states being in that risk pool. And then when those extreme events happen, then there's catastrophic insurance that helps people cover the losses or cover the impact. And that can be the state government. It can even be a mechanism that works through the federal allocation system, right, where that money is put aside and is so for example in Nigeria you already have the I think it's called the ecological fund, which is 1 or 2% of finances which goes there, which is set up to deal with issues like that. For the energy access sector, which is where we're active and where we're focused, we're seeing a massive build out, or at least build out in mini grids, right? In rural mini grids, isolated and interconnected mini grids. So whereas the likelihood of having a single weather event take out all of those mini grids is extremely unlikely. It's one of those biblical stories about the day when the sun didn't shine. It's not likely, but then there are things that can happen. So you can have entire regions covered by haze, like extreme haze, which affects solar panels, which affects the production. And so that's where catastrophic insurance can come in, because it can lead to, let's say 1 week or even a month of really, really poor solar resource, which affects the economics of the companies, the mini grid operators, and so on. And so that's a place where the insurance can come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Shaya. I mean, and I'm very intrigued about some of what you say, because we're seeing increasing flood in the middle belt, having an impact on some of your mini-grid developers, and that's a region that is really affected. So Benue, Plateau, especially during the raining season. But I also hear you when you're calling for this sort of catalytic fund to be in place that can sort of address some of these risk factors. And so I'm going to come over to AFC, because yesterday a lot of people that were here were saying to AFC, and Ian was in the room, they were like, AFC, you have clout. Why can't you do A, B, and C around this climate thing? So I'm going to pose that question to you, because there's been a call around creating a catalytic fund that can create insurance products around risk mitigation. And I'm wondering what it will take to do that, because it looks like you're already doing that. But how then can you on-lend to other financial institutions, maybe to an all-on or to an infrastructure bank, to then on-invest into other people that you can't because of the ticket sizes that you do?
Yeah, sure. No, yes. Look, we're looking at a lot of these products, and because, as I said, the climate agenda is really important to us, and through Ayan's business line with the AFC Capital Partners, one of the things that we're looking at through that is also parametric insurance, which effectively is catastrophic insurance, and so those are some of the things that we're already looking at. How do we effectively put in place structures that allow for us, not only when we invest, how do we employ those structures, but to also then be able to, through our own experiences, either facilitate and help other institutions that want to benefit from some of the work that we're doing. We're also looking at setting up, a captive insurance program, which would likely also provide some of that parametric insurance. So these are things that we're looking at, but I do believe that setting up some kind of a fund structure which focuses on this is important. Now, there is the Africa Risk Capacity, for example, and they've set up a program that allows for them to be effectively able to put in place insurance products for their member countries, which are sovereigns, to be able to benefit from this sort of insurance products. So, for example, they recently have worked with the West African Development Bank, where they've pulled together a number of countries, I believe it's about 4 countries, where they put it into a basket of loans into a program, where effectively what happens is that the Africa Risk Capacity has provided insurance, catastrophic insurance. So what happens is that if there's, for example, there's a flood or some climate impact, the sovereigns then are able to freeze payment on the loans. And so invariably the insurers then pay out. The sovereigns are able to freeze payments on the loan, so that gives some reprieve whilst some reconstruction can happen. And so they provided that capacity, and they've been able to then crowd in additional capacity from the reinsurance market through Munich Re, for example. So these are all products that exist today. And I think there's a strategic imperative for the multilaterals to continue to try and scale up this, because this is really important that we're able to put in place this sort of structures that allow for us to pull in liquidity and to be able to make investments, either directly or through sort of on-lending structures to various institutions that can then on-lend, and then we can also then provide capacity to help alleviate some of the constraints of the impact of climate change.
Thank you so much, Wala, for that, because I think it's important for everyone, but also for those who are working in this space to know where they can actually go partner to get more investments. I'm coming to Nasiru now. So with the infrastructure bank, can you talk us through how private sector can play a stronger role in supporting catastrophic insurance schemes and climate adaptation financing in Nigeria?
All right, thank you very much. The infrastructure bank can come in by looking at co-financing and risk sharing, We can partner with government and multilateral agencies to co-finance climate resilient projects. We can do that either by direct investment or by indirect investment into sovereign or sub-sovereign catastrophe bonds, where payouts support infrastructure recovery after disasters. We can work with insurance companies like the AXA Mansard's Leadway to develop innovative insurance products, which can be sold at micro level to the local farmers, because it is important for financial inclusion. Yesterday I was having a chat with somebody that works with Dangote Group. This year I was told there were some seeds that were, last year that were shared for onions. They call it solar. I don't know why it was named that, but people planted the seeds. You go there, you want to pull out onions, and you just see those roots, the sprouts, but there's no onion under. They said one smallholder farmer pulled and pulled and pulled, and he kept seeing just the sprouts without the onion, and he started running. 3 days later, they found him like 100 kilometers away. So, I mean, this is somebody that has suffered deep psychological trauma because maybe he borrowed a lot of money to put into that farm and he lost everything. With a proper insurance in place, it would have given him some comfort. We can also help by embedding resilience in corporate infrastructure projects. That is by helping private companies develop real estate, roads, or industrial zones to integrate climate risk into their assessment and resilient futures. That will assist us to build climate resilient infrastructure that is less prone to disruption, is more bankable, and can attract green financing. As I said, we're also looking at participating in the issuance of green bonds so that it can help fund climate-friendly funds. Then investment in data analytics. Data analytics is very, very important because without data, even the insurance cannot dimension the risk. So the farmers cannot have an idea on what will work or what will not work for that year. So investment, better data supports pricing of insurance, planning of infrastructure, and the targeting of adaptation of investments. And then, as I also said, advocacy, so that large companies with ESG mandates can integrate climate adaptation and risk financing into their sustainability programs. The government has the ability to force that to happen. Yeah. So, but the government must also create a regulatory and policy environment that encourages innovation in climate insurance, provide tax incentives or credit enhancements through like Infraco, and then establish clear resilience standards for infrastructure. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for that, because that sort of segues nicely into my next question, which is going to Obe. This call around policy, we've heard it a lot. But given the macroeconomic uncertainties in Nigeria, can you maybe tell us a few of the specific policy reforms that needs to be in place to boost our access to climate risk insurance and multilateral finance?
So I must start off by saying I'm not a policymaker. I'm more in the private sector. So
private sector's perspective, what policies do you think you would like to see in place to be able to unlock more financing?
Yes. But when I think we all can attest that in Nigeria, there's been a lot of policies, regulations, laws, confabs, meetings that are set up by various administrations. So I believe in terms of policies, we're not short of policies. I think the issue in Nigeria has been around enforcement of policies and laws and regulation. Mr. Ishaka gave an example of the road between Niger and Abuja, that it's built on clay, and that's not the right material to use. It's better to use concrete. But from an enforcement perspective, if there are clear regulations that ensure that when you're building infrastructure, you consider the impact of climate and you use the right material and it's enforced. That would ensure that if there's ever a storm or anything, that road will not be impacted. So I think for me, the key issue here is around enforcement. But going back to just policies that potentially would assist the private sector to deploy capital to Nigeria, I think one would just be around having clarity on the direction of travel of governments. And I think this is not just immune to Nigeria, even in the US right now, because of Donald Trump's uncertain tariffs, that has actually impacted the market. So in Nigeria as well, similar uncertainties around policies, directions, doesn't give investors a long-term vision of deploying capital. As an example, a couple of years ago, during the Jonathan administration, there were plans to build out massive grid-connected solar PVs. So massive solar PVs across different regions of the country. And a lot of international investors have come in from all over, from Germany, from South Africa, from the US, to invest in these massive solar renewable energy projects. But however, once the government changed, those policies were reversed, and those investors that put in initial capital for project development lost out. So to be able to convince those investors to come back into Nigeria will be very difficult. So I think for me, it's around just having stable policies that are consistent to provide investor confidence. Another issue which we all can relate to is around the volatility of the FX. If you're a foreign investor and you want to bring in dollars or pounds to Nigeria, and I'm not sure where the FX rate would be in the next 5-6 months, it will be very difficult to invest. I know right now in the last maybe 2 months, the Naira has stabilized at 1,600 or so, but how long would that last for? So I think there's a key work we need to do around our FX currency. Also, I think in terms of getting projects approved on time, it takes a very long time to get transactions approved. So I think there's a work that needs to be done to ensure that how can we accelerate project approvals, project development, so it doesn't take 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 years to develop projects. Another example I'll give is this around also within agencies in government, better coordination to ensure that they're working in SIM and the policies from the top are passed down. I came in earlier this morning and the CEO of Sanglev EV mentioned that it's imported a lot of SKUs to manufacture his cars, and they're all sitting at the port right now. They haven't been cleared, and these are automobiles that would help us to have more cleaner energy. But because there's not coordination between customs, between SS, between the different agencies, that just slows things down. So again, a lot of work needs to be done around how do we have more coordination in government, how do we ensure that the policies are consistent, how do we work on our FX regime to create stability, and that would encourage investments from foreign investors.
Wow, can we please give him a round of applause? You see, but he started with a caveat, I'm not a policy maker, but these are clear metrics that anybody who's an investor or a developer can obviously align with. I'm going to go over to Shaya. Before I ask Shaya my question, Orlon was one of the earliest investors in Clean Technology Hub. In fact, when they came to us, total revenue in a year could have been ₦500,000 naira, if you can believe it. And now we're being valued as a company about 5 billion naira in valuation. So these are people who actually recognized potential even before we even knew we were potential. And I want you to talk about that, Shaya, because you guys are very unique. Orlon is unique in that way. In the way that you invest, you're very bullish around Nigerians in the energy asset sector. And you have a lot of success stories. People who you have taken from zero valuation, they are companies, they are investees of yours who I know are doing great things. and have gone on to raise $5 million, $10 million since you invested in them. Tell us about how you look out for those companies to invest in, because we have a number of them here in this room that are looking for investments. And what kind of ticket investments that you're looking at, what should they be doing now to make sure that they're in your line of sight?
Okay, yeah, thank you, and thank you for the testimony. And really, yeah, that's very true, and it speaks to what I had mentioned earlier, which is what Olon has been flexible capital, being patient. It's met the industry where it was. In previous life, working for multilateral institutions or DFIs, sometimes the DFI says, okay, yeah, I'm interested, very heavily interested in Nigeria, and I want to do deals with a $15 million ticket. And then you wait years to find a deal with a $15 million ticket. And what Olon has been able to do is to meet the industry where it was. Like, okay, so what do people need? $50,000 just to go get a proof of concept, just to go build their first mini grid, just to go build their first set of widgets that they want to commercialize. And then the ones that were successful have been able to double down on them. I think in terms of current focus, the North Star is looking for companies that help us deliver connections to Nigerians. That's really how we're judged, and that's how we judge ourselves. So we're looking for companies. So the backend for Clean Technology Hub was under one of the pillars of Olon, which is creating the enabling environment. So that's supporting, whether that could be supporting studies that help the entire system. It could be supporting organizations that help the system. It could be also, just supporting the REA through the off-grid stakeholder forum and so on. So that continues to be the focus. Focus continues to be mini grids, so people who are building mini grids, because that's one of the best ways to deliver the highest quality electricity connections that you can deliver. And without trying to get into any kind of hierarchy, something else that delivers a lot of very good connections is solar home systems, where you have 50-watt systems, 100-watt systems, even up to 1 kilowatt, 2 kilowatt systems, where that allows people to have lighting at night, power one fridge, charge their phones, and that kind of thing. And so, if I would give an example, because I think you wanted me to do that, of people who we backed and how they grew, I would make a shout out to a company called Salfa, who just started out importing some kits for solar home systems, and right now they're assembling. We've just signed a new agreement with them to put in another $2.5 million. And literally, as the ink was drying on the paper, they had need for additional financing, and so we're going to actually consider backing them even further, because the company is growing that fast. Yeah. And it's a very competitive sector, which is dominated by major international companies like Sun King, Lumos, etc. But they found their niche, and they really understand the market. They understand the Nigerian need, and they're assembling here. And then they've been very innovative with with the partnerships that they've had that allows them to distribute. So we're continue to be interested in clean tech. We're looking for. We think that energy access gets solved through the answer for me for energy, and I think largely for us is all of the above. Anything that delivers connections, we want to look at it at different stages. We're at a point where we're actually being pushed to do bigger deals, and so we're able to do that as well. One of the other things we're doing is we've keyed in very much into the DS program with the mini grids, but with M300, with Mission 300, which for people who might not know, it's a new, ambitious, a renewed sense of urgency by the World Bank and the AFDB to mobilize African governments to deliver 300 million new connections to electricity to Africans by 2030. And I note the year 2030 because I don't want to say it's because we said that 2030 as the year of target, but somehow a lot of people in setting targets, the REA, many people are setting the same year 2030 that Olon first set as a pivotal year. So with Mission 300, we're involved in resource mobilization, mobilizing funds that can deliver across, and being involved in catalytic level to some of those fund discussions.
Thank you so much, Shea. And I hope that as Olon is thinking through its new strategy, it doesn't also stop those smaller investments, because we've seen the scale. One of the arguments that I make about this energy access sector, especially with people who do the big ticket things, is they're good, but the smaller ticket investments create jobs much faster than the big ticket ones. The big ticket ones take a lot more time even to close, but the smaller ones, they deploy very quickly. And look at the story you told about how somebody has gone from importing to assembling in Nigeria, and think about just the amount of jobs, people that are in jobs right away, versus if you're looking at a $50 million deal that is going to take a couple of years to sort of get to closure. And that brings me to my final question to AFC. Yesterday, a number of women that are in our accelerator were here in the audience, because, you know, they are now in this, they've finished the accelerator program and are now going to be pitching to investors. And many of them were saying to us that they are very alarmed about the current climate around investments. They feel like funds are shrinking. They feel like the global climate, you know, where a lot of the funding mechanisms that we used to know are changing. And what does this mean for them? And I know that AFC only does big deals. Do you see a place for these MSEs that are sort of being wiped away, not just in Nigeria or even in the US, you know, that are being decimated, and what that means for our growth? Are you thinking in terms of sort of being a buffer for some time, for a couple of years, until things stabilize? Because a lot of smaller businesses are going out of business, and these are really the job engines for any economy, whether it's the US or Nigeria. What does AFC think?
Yeah, so I mean, at AFC we want to be catalytic, so that's the viewpoint, and some of the ways that we're doing this is, you know, recognizing that because we have a specific mandate which is primarily on infrastructure. You know, these are large transformational projects. You know, for example, we're working on the Lobito corridor, right, which is going to open up the whole access of critical minerals from, you know, Angola all the way to DRC. Right. So these are the sort of things that we're looking at. But because we're not at the SME level, we're using intermediaries. So, for example, you know, last year we closed out $1.8 billion financing to Bank of Industry. Right, because we know that those funds would be on lent to SMEs and, you know, other industrial companies here in Nigeria, right? And so we do not have direct access to those companies, but we can use intermediaries to do that. And that's one of the ways that we're creating scale. So we identify a big financial institution that has a similar agenda. So, you know, BOI is all about industrialization, which for us we're saying is critical for the climate agenda, because we need to industrialize, we need to localize, we need to build manufacturing plants locally. And how do we help with that acceleration is by identifying intermediaries and using that. And then obviously the other guiding principles, right? We are a multilateral institution that's focused on ESG and the climate. How do we then ensure that, you know, the funds that they're using is going into projects that help to sustain the climate agenda, the environmental and social components of things that we're looking at. So that's a critical component for us, and that's the way that we're sort of looking at it, to ensure that we're creating companies that are sustainable, but also that is creating the jobs. And the catalytic effect for us is then obviously is a skill. So whilst we're looking at deploying on big infrastructure projects that are transformational, that are helping, you know, the economies, we're also looking at how do we then reach the bottom of the pyramid and making sure that, you know, the ripple effect and the jobs are also created. That's how we look at it.
Thank you so much for that answer. Please give them a round of applause. It's question time, question and answer time. I will take 5 questions all at once. Please, panelists, take notes because they will be referring to you as they ask the questions. If you have a question, put up your hands immediately so that we come to you. I have 1, 2, 3 hands over there, a 4th hand here, and a 5th hand there. Can somebody do a mic check? Okay. Keep your hands up. I see 1, 2, 3. I saw 3 hands here. Just keep your hands up. And we'll take all the questions all at the same time before the panelists close out with the answers that you give.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Oladimpe. I head the financial advisory desk in Keystone. My question actually is to BII. I know over the last decade, BII has made significant capital deployments into Nigeria, particularly to the tier 1 banks, the likes of Access Bank, First Bank. I remember when I was in Citibank, we had a lot of calls from our inclusive finance team saying BII wants to partner with you and all. However, we haven't really seen enough engagement.
Is there a question?
Little to no engagement with the mid-tier and the tier 3 banks. So now my question is that, why is there a gap there? Because those are the people who actually lend to these MSMEs over and above the urban centers. They are the ones who actually lend to the medium and small scale guys. Do you have a plan? Why is there a gap? And when should we intend to see changes here?
Thank you. Second question. So that's for BII. You got a question? Second question. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Omolora Meshak. I work with Climate Action Platform for Africa, and I work with the policy team, so my question is policy related. And actually to all of the panelists, first of all, thank you very much for the session. It was very, very good. As we all know, the climate finance gap is widening, especially given global conversations and global policy trends. And so I was wondering, I know that Okwe, you spoke about policy needs that you see that companies you invest in are facing, but I was wondering in your work with AFC, with Olon, with the Infrastructure Bank, what specifically or what type of supports are you able to offer? Because at the end of the day, there are underlying factors that have a huge role to play in the success of projects. And one of those is the quality of policies. Yes, Nigeria has a lot of policies, but do we have the right policies?
Is that a question?
Question then is, what type of support are you able to offer just to strengthen the policy environment in Nigeria? Thank you.
Can I suggest that we keep our questions very short so that we get all of them, as many people as can ask questions. Thank you for that question. Yes. Very short, sir.
Short, straight to the point.
Yes.
Okay, my question is, for carbon project developers, right? I know it's usually either solar project developers or any project development in the renewable energy sector or space, right? For carbon project developers, say for example, I have a blue carbon project and we're a company, right? Are there companies like AFC, BI, or Olan, right, who is willing to finance companies who are now working on projects like that and need working capital to be able to execute straight? Thank you.
Okay. All right, there's another question. The lady, yes?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Theodora Ogaranduku. My question is, what offerings are there for companies working to decarbonize last mile transport? There's been a lot said about electricity, mini-grid development, and being in the last mile transport business. My question is, we don't seem to hear anything about the transportation sector.
Sorry, can I ask you a quick question? What is last mile transport?
So your tricycle riders, your bike riders, those
I
are
just
last
wanted
mile.
to make sure everyone understood what you were asking.
Yeah. So we're trying to electrify that aspect of the transport sector. I want to know what offerings are there to support projects of that nature. Thank you.
Okay, so you're in the two-wheeler and three-wheeler business. Excellent.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Ani Ezekiel. I'd like to ask Olon and Infrastructure Bank. So how do you balance the commerciality of your project vis-a-vis the SDG goals, bankability of projects, payback period of your project, the return on investment of your projects and all that? So how do you balance all these when you deploy your projects to the unserved or the underserved communities? Thank you.
Okay, we can stop there before we go to the other side of the room. There are like five questions now. There's a question on the carbon credit and how we go. There's a question on policy. There's a question on financing gap. And there's a question on how do you figure out bankability? What is your payback time? Those sort of things. So should we start from you? You pick the ones you're answering and then you say.
All right, so let me take question 5. How do we balance commercializability with bankability, ROI, etc. when deploying to the underserved? So earlier on in one of the discussions, I was putting up the point where you go into partnership with multilaterals. Multilaterals, especially when you're talking about projects that are green, right? There are a lot of funds out there, cheap funds for green projects. But of course, for you to push any project, it must be bankable. So because you are getting blended financing, you are bringing in money from multilaterals that are usually single digit, then you are combining it with your own funds, and then maybe a couple of government incentives are thrown in. And there's also credit enhancement from places like Infraco. By the time you put all those things together, you find out that the cost is usually cheaper. An example is you could see Dangote building a concrete road from Oronshoki to the international airport. And what did the government do? They gave him a tax credit. So he built the road for tax credit, which means the road is not tolled or anything to get money back to the developer of that road. So blended financing with some government incentive and other things come into play to make sure that the cost becomes affordable, and that is how it is balanced.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so maybe a question around the policy. I mean, we at AFC are not necessarily a policy bank, but I mean, obviously, implicitly in our work, we need to ensure that the policy environment does work for us to be able to make sure that we're making the right investments. And so I'd say, one of the things that we do is on the advisory side. So we have an advisory business, and basically, a lot of the work that they do also is just making sure that they're advising and engaging with the right counterparties to ensure that they unlock some of these challenges and constraints. So certainly conversation that can be had there. And then also I'd mentioned some of the work that we're doing is really advocacy work, right? So around the climate agenda, for example, we put out white papers. We're having a lot of conversations with various institutions and agencies that matter around how do we ensure that there's a pragmatic path to net zero, because we need to make sure that Africa's voice is heard and that we just don't have policies that are handed down to us, but how do we ensure that effectively we are creating and being a part of those policies to ensure that we all get to net zero. With respect to the question around project development, we do have a project development arm at AFC where we've helped develop a number of projects because we want to ensure that we're getting projects to a bankability stage. That then allows for us to deploy the suite of products that we have at AFC, so we can do everything from equity, debt, mezzanine. But to ensure that we're able to then finance it, we need to make sure that the projects are developed well. So we've done a number of projects that have been successful at the development stage and that have gotten into bankability stage, and we've been able to finance that. So happy to address and speak about anything related to project development.
So I'll take a couple of the questions. There was the question from Mishak about policy, how to support policy. Yeah, I would say that Olon does support that. So one of the ways is through, I mentioned before, studies, white papers. So for example, around the circular economy and disposal of e-waste, We've recently sponsored a study which I would say informs policy in many ways, right? At least allows policymakers understand the pain points and the points where solutions are needed. There was the question from Ezekiel about how do you balance commerciality of a project, etc. I would say that for us, it starts from having a lower return expectation, being an impact vehicle. But then it's also balanced on the other side by the need for sustainability. So we have to be investing in a business that delivers a solution, that delivers that solution sustainably. And so both sides of it are necessary. So we're willing to take on more risk. We're willing to have a lower return. But at the same time, to that, there has to be a business that still exists in 10, 15 years and so on. And then the question about decarbonizing last mile from Sarah, that's something that doesn't really apply to, it's something that Olon for now has excluded and said we don't do. But we're looking at it and reconsidering with new strategy. And as much as that feeds into existing mini-grid infrastructure, that can be a window for us to look at it. And then about carbon projects, developers, we're interested in that. We've invested in that in the past, and we continue to be interested. Thank you.
And I think, did you want to ask any of the questions?
Yeah, so I can just try to address, I guess, 2 or 3 real quick. So I think from the madam from Keystone Bank, so you are right that BI does engage and provide a lot of financing to FIs, so the likes of Access Bank. We've provided a lot of funding to allow them to then on-lend to the main economy. I think our strategy had been to your point, start off with more the tier 1 banks, but work our way down. So I don't think it's an intentional exclusion. It's more around starting from I guess tier 1s, tier 2. So we're happy to engage. I think we can connect, and I can connect you with our financial service group team to see how we can support you, especially if you have projects that align with some of our mandates on climate finance. So let's definitely have that engagement. On the question around last mile transport, I think that's a fantastic question. At BI, I actually lead our investments also within ports and logistics. And a lot of the investments we're looking to do is, of course, when you're looking at logistics, you have to look at it from, of course, the ports when the vessels land, all the way to the last mile. So it has to be an end-to-end solution. And one of the areas we're looking to do as well is to provide, how do we provide support to even cold chain logistics providers, whereby you can provide cold chain infrastructure that helps to reduce food loss wastage, which has an impact on the environment. So this is an area of focus of BI around EV charging, EV mobility. So also happy to exchange details and see how we can support you on any particular project you're working on. And then lastly, on the carbon credit project, at BI, our approach has been to be selective on the business models that we want to finance. So we would not finance a project whereby the business model relies purely on carbon credits, because we feel that it may not be sustainable, because the volatility of that carbon pricing is, it's sometimes if the donors or the funders decide to pull off, then what happens? So we want your business model itself to be bankable, given the services that you offer, and that the carbon credit is almost an upside or an addition. But if that's the main business model, it's not one for us at BI to finance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, I think we're out of, there were 2 hands up here. 1, 2, just 1. Okay, we can take yours as the final question. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Flora Oluwole. I'm the founder and CEO of Zonergy Limited. So my question is to Mr. Olusheye Basir. How do you inject funds in the businesses you choose to invest in? Is it equity-backed loan or equity purchase outright? And if it's the latter, how do you remit your funds because of the exchange rate, dollar and naira conversion? For example, now if you put in $1 million and the volatility of the exchange rate happens, what are the measures you put in to make sure that what you collect would amount to what you're meant to get in terms of dollars, factoring in the ROI? Or do you collect your returns in naira? Also, what are the requirements that informs the company you are to invest in? For example, now we are a renewable energy company, and we have SHS and portable power stations. Thank you.
Do many different types of instruments. It has straight out equity. The most common type of instrument we use is a convertible, and some of them are more debt-like and some are more equity-like. We've also had, very creative instruments, reimbursable grants. It's not something we like to do, but we have done. And so, yeah, the way we see it, it's not really what we call the instrument. It's where it sits in your capital structure and what problem it solves there. So very often for the category of business that you are, it's being able to provide liquidity that allows you to get, to get going. So just cash that you have full recourse to and can use flexibly. In terms of exchange rate, that's a big problem. It's a major problem for the industry. Something that we spend a lot of time thinking about how to deal with. In the past, we have invested in USD. Recently, for existing investees, when we doubled down, we were able to offer Naira financing, but we're only offering that to existing investees. So, Naira loans, competitively priced and, flexible tenors and flexible terms. In terms of how we deal with that risk, it's so many ways, and it is what it is.
It is what it is. Okay, so listen, this has been a fantastic lineup of panels. Please do you give them a round of applause. We've gone from big ticket catalytic funding to looking at some of the smaller investment types. We've done a deep dive into what some of the policy requirements can be to allow investors make more investments into the green economy. We've looked at some of the risk profiles, and how we can mitigate against those. There was a lot of call for government to help with the risk in the sector. And we've also looked at how a growing focus on investing in Nigerian businesses, especially green and climate finance and green and climate tech businesses, is a way to grow the sector. So on this note, I want you to please help me give them another big round of applause. And I want to thank all of you. Ole Onimokun, who's the Director of Infrastructure and Climate Group for British International Investments. Wala Asase, Deputy Director and Head Syndication with AFC. Nasiru Ishiaku, who is the Executive Director of Operations for the Infrastructure Bank. And Olusheye Basir, the Investment Manager for all. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. We thank Lenny, who unfortunately had to run as well.
While we are clapping for our panelists, please can we put our hands together for our moderator as well? Such a fantastic moderator. Thank you so much, ma'am, for steering the conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, among the many insightful perspectives being shared on today's panel session. One that I really love is what was shared at the beginning, and that was the call for partnerships. And this is because one of our core objectives for being here is to forge strategic partnerships to help us achieve our goal when it comes to financing climate change. And beyond the deal room currently happening, I implore you to please listen attentively, please listen intently, and see how we can partner together with the panelists, with attendees, how we can partner together, forge these partnerships, and help achieve our goal. Once again, please let us put our hands together for such an insightful and amazing panel session. Please put your hands together once again. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure one thing or one factor we can all relate to it beyond climate change is, or that has affected our businesses or projects, is the currency exchange or the foreign exchange rate, right? How many of us have been affected by it in one way or the other? Just raise your hand up. Raise your hand up. This is something that every Nigerian can relate to. And I'm pleased to let you know that our next panel conversation is going to be talking about foreign exchange risk in clean energy projects, how we can overcome the foreign exchange risks in clean energy projects, and with a focus on financing climate tech innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I invite our moderator. She is Ms. Cynthia Shobayo. She is the managing partner at Synergy Mapping Consult. Please put your hands together as she gracefully walks up to the stage. Please keep clapping as she comes. I want her to smile. Keep clapping as she smiles. Amazing, amazing. Joining her on stage as well is the Group Executive Director and CEO of Pan Ocean Oil Corporation Limited and New Cross Group. He is no other person than the enigmatic Dr. Bolaji Ogundare. Please put your hands together as he comes on stage. Thank you so much, sir. Please, if you don't clap well, he won't come. Thank you. He's smiling. Amazing. I love it. All right, our next panelist joining on stage is the Divisional Head Business Technology and Digital Innovation at Central Securities Clearing System PLC. He's no other person than Mr. Tobe Nadozie. Please put your hands together as it's I love how our panelists are smiling as they're coming onto the stage. Thank you so much. Sasa, please could you smile once again? Amazing. Thank you. So our last panelist for the second conversation is the founding partner of Duale Ovia and Alex Adedipe. He is Mr. Adeniyi Duale. Please let's put our hands together as he comes. He's charismatic, he's enigmatic. Please put your hands together as he comes. And he's smiling. So please can you keep smiling? Let's keep putting our hands together as he comes. Thank you so much. Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our panelists and our able moderator for the second panel session. And now I leave you into the able hands of our moderator, Ma'am Cynthia Shobayo.
Good morning, everyone, and very welcome to our panelists. Thank you so much for availing your time to join us today. So just quickly, I always prefer self-introductions. I feel like it does perfect justice to everything. So what I'll do is I'll just briefly give context to what we're talking about here today, and then move into introductions and the questions to follow, and the conversation just flow that way.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry and I apologize. Please, I hope the claps will be able to apologize on my behalf as I welcome our final panelist onto the stage. She is the Vice President of Origination and Structuring Infrastructure Credit Guarantee Company Limited, InfraCredit. Please, can we put our hands together as I welcome graciously? Please, can you clap? Can you shout, please? As I welcome to the stage our final panelist for this conversation, Ma'am Ojuru Adeniyi. Please keep clapping. Keep clapping. I'm sure she's not offended because she's smiling as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay. So our topic is financing climate innovation, overcoming foreign exchange risk in clean energy projects. So the focus of this panel discussion is to understand some of the risks involved in FX, using FX to finance clean energy projects. What financing instruments exist for clean energy projects or startups or companies. The roles of DFIs and MDs in financing some of this project, what regulatory and policy interventions exist and guides the frameworks within this sector, and also we look at recommendations and possible actions that we can pick on moving forward from here. So once again, I'd like to say thank you so much for being a part of this panel, and I would just like us to briefly introduce ourselves and what our areas of expertise is.
Okay, if you mind to stand up if you have a preference. Okay, good morning again. I think we're still in the morning time. And again, I'd like to congratulate the organizers of this program because I think it's a great event. And as it goes from year to year, I believe it will represent the clean energy aggregation and growth around Nigeria. My name is Dr. Balaji, and I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm probably the outside factor in here. I grew up as a surgeon in New York, and from there I became an energy enthusiast. I'm currently the group CEO, the group executive director for the Pan-Ocean Nucleus Group, which is basically an upstream exploration and production company. But more interestingly for this forum is that way before a lot of people started thinking of climate, I was one of the co-founders of Carbon in Nigeria, which dates back to about 2010, and this was following the Kyoto Protocol that a lot of people are familiar with, and which essentially drove the clean development mechanism. I founded Carbon, which is probably one of the leading project developers in the climate space in Nigeria now, and I'm currently the chairman of that company. Thank you very much.
Okay, my name is Sobe. I work for the Central Security System CSCS, where I use business technology and digital applications. Before that, I've spent about 2 decades in the banking sector. In addition to working in the banking sector, I've been involved in a couple of clean energy efforts, including trying to get a couple of the banks who have worked into this clean energy space. We've had to do a whole lot of things to achieve that. Beyond working at the CSCS, today I'm still involved in a couple of tech firms that finance some SMEs that get into, providing clean energy. It's becoming, I think, the norm with the band A wagon which we are facing in the country. So locally, I get involved in supporting a couple of firms, and beyond bringing in the past, a lot of the things which we now use for most of these firms, apart from the batteries, are locally produced. So entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs that want to develop these devices and equipment, I physically join in funding and help them in expanding their markets. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I don't think I have that kind of rich history like Dr. and panelists have, but my name is Didi Duale. I'm a founding partner with Duale, Hogan and Exadelipe. It's a law firm. It's been around for close to 10 years. I lead the energy and natural resource practice together with P practice. I think one of the reasons why I agreed to be a panelist here was that, one of the things that we're focusing on the firm is that we're very driven with renewable energy. There's a lot that we're doing, and if you check, there's a lot of articles, there's a lot of things that we're putting out there. We think that, and we know that the opportunity, I shouldn't be saying this because I don't have any competitor here. But in all honesty, we know that there's something there. It's a virgin view, and again for us, it's something that we have a passion for. We have people who are driven to do things in that sector, and more importantly, for us, whatever we do, we like to add value. So I'm happy to be here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ojura Adeji, and I'm the climate infrastructure lead at InfraCredit. InfraCredit essentially was set up by the Nigerian the Sovereign Investment Authority, SIA, alongside ASC. So today we've done in the renewable energy space, we pivoted to doing clean energy from a clean energy transition strategy program 3 years ago, and to date we've closed about 9 billion worth of transactions in that space, really around mini grids. Yeah, on Monday we got approval for, I'll say, the very first CNI project that InfraCredit is doing in the renewable energy space, and that's new for us. So we're also hoping to do the first gender bond, green gender bond in the market as well, on the back of our renewable energy strategy roadmap where I sit. So happy to go on with the conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause for them, please? Okay, so I'll just start us off, and first I want us to take a look at where we stand currently as a nation when it comes to clean energy. The most visible that we see in Nigeria are solar. Every home literally has a solar panel and and then we've seen some level of policies and collaborations between the government and organizations such as the Clean Tech Hub and also the Climate Innovation Center, who are looking at what policies and how best to support entrepreneurs in this sector. So my question is, how viable is our local currency when it comes to investing in clean energy companies? When you look at the volatility of FX, does it make more sense that we pivot to investing in clean energy companies with our local currency? Or would you say we keep relying on FX, considering that some of these companies are valued in dollars? I would like to start with you, Drew.
So thank you for that question. I think the best way I'll try and address it is really from the gap, right? When you look at the energy deficit in the country, it's huge. The number of households that do not have access to electricity is a lot. The DES program is trying to empower 17.5 million households in Nigeria. So you're already seeing where the gap is. That's one. Two is, InfraCredit is a local currency guarantee institution. So our guarantees are in local currency, not foreign currency. And you asked the question around if the local currency is viable. And I'll say yes, because if you look at the financial statements or how these clean energy companies earn their revenue, it's mainly in naira. Right? In my previous life, I've been in the finance sector for all my life, but from the banking industry, you want to ensure that you don't have those type of mismatches. You want to match your revenue and even your assets and liabilities need to match from the same type of currency. So you want to be sure that, one, you're earning in naira and you're borrowing in naira. But at the same time, we have a huge infrastructure gap. We also have very poor, industrial economy. So it's really difficult when you say, and how you source to the type of equipment that you require. So what we did practically in InfraCredit was, the likes of BII, NPI that I was here, they've given us support in terms of, catalyzing financing, local currency financing for more clean energy projects. What we do is, that type of money that comes in SCY is kept in SCY and is really used to procure equipment that is necessary. All of that costs that are not SCY related are invested in naira. Do you understand? So you tend to blend the currencies, and that helps developers, get to import their equipment very quickly. So yes, the local currency is still very useful, just from the consideration of the fact that their revenue is priced in naira. right? And it's easier for them to borrow. A lot of the developers that raised debt in foreign currency were broke, stark broke, after COVID. So it was really difficult for them to recover their money back, and then also for the lenders as well. So I'll stop there.
Okay, I want to take thoughts from Elijah.
I think, honestly, when I look at my experience, and I've worked with a few projects that I've supported in Nigeria on implementing projects that are renewable energy projects. The biggest challenge that I find is we are trying to jump a space where we invest in the fundamental development of the renewable energy sector. So there are raw materials that go into the manufacturing of any of the components that we have in the panels that we use, or the capacitors. There are raw materials, and I'm not saying we have to manufacture everything, but the truth is Nigeria as a country is blessed with the natural resources that we need to manufacture this. And it's an issue that I find in many sectors where we're trying to jump a gap, and in jumping that gap, we do not create sustainability in the industry. So this is where I like to start off, but that doesn't mean we're wrong. I mean, it doesn't mean you still cannot be an industry of steroids. You just need to understand that there are fundamental areas you need to make compromises on, and that is why the biggest challenge on exposure to exchange rate always happens. Because I always say that unless we stop importing so many components, the volatility of our exchange rate will affect any project you're developing in Nigeria. So a lot of people don't like to hear this, but I would say we need to take our time to develop in at least 60% of the materials, components that we need for this industry, for us to build a sustainable industry. Otherwise, we're just pivoting from one importation to another importation, where you're importing the materials, you're importing the technology, you're importing the maintenance, and you're importing the people that will actually do the service. So sometimes when I speak on this, people do not really like to hear it, but I know that we're going to come back to invest in the fundamentals of what will build a sustainable renewable energy industry for us in Nigeria.
Thank you. Just before you pass the mic, this is coming back to you. My next question is, we talked about the possibility of manufacturing more components here. Do you think this will impact the output and the cost on the part of the consumer?
So I feel 100% this will impact it. In the manufacturing sector in Nigeria, the biggest cost factor right now is energy, regardless of what you're manufacturing. So there is a component that has to come in. And it looks as if I've attributed all the necessities to the government, to the investor side. There is a big side that the government has to play, which is creating the incentives for investments that will take you to sustain this industry. So I do believe that we have the ability to do it, but it cannot be without government support. It's a scenario where everyone, I mean, at the period when your period of farming or you're investing, you really need very significant subsidies that you're not bribing to get to help for you to develop what you need to build this industry. I really like to, when I think about projects, I like to go to the fundamentals of what will make it work. And I feel like, there are quite a bunch of very successful projects that are taking place in Nigeria today. But over 80% of the components that make up this sector, and a big chunk of the financing, except maybe all of it, is coming from external factors and DFIs and foreign organizations. Until our local financing industry is able to do feasibility studies and sustain the investment needed for these component companies to exist, we're still going to have a bit of a hedge. I heard on the last panel where people were talking about when prices drop in the commodities, everybody panics. And that is what we expose ourselves to. Where you go through the law of when markets drop, nobody's investing in renewable. When markets go up, everybody supposed to start creating panels all over again. I don't know, hopefully I'm helping. I hope I'm not confusing people, but I like to always leave realizing the truth from a practical standpoint.
Thank you very much. Since we're going to, I like how the conversation is flowing right now. Let's go to the here. Let's look at policy now. What policies do you think needs to be put in place to sort of guide, or let's say, to guide clean technology investment, how companies operate within this sector?
Okay, so first question, the way I'm going to answer this question is this. In Nigeria, we have policies. We have laws, right?
And I think someone also mentioned that the issue is not the fact that we don't have this, right? And whilst I was sitting down there, I thought of something that I don't know whether anybody remembers during Obasanjo's time when we had a coordinating Minister of Economy. So there was nothing that could go wrong, or there was no policy that would come out that wouldn't have been vetted by Okonjo-Iweala, right? Right now we have, again, everybody wants to show doings, so to speak. You have the revenue agency saying one thing, you have some ministers saying another thing, you have the customs also saying something, right? So the way I look at it is that it's not a situation of us not having how things should be done. It's basically expecting that, oh, you know what, if there is a ministry in charge of in charge of the economy, where you want policies to be taken. I mean, again, someone will say that, okay, in relation to, and because we're really speaking about Forex, right? Someone will say, oh, they want a single window or something that will come out for people who are in this area, so renewables, right? So, but the problem with that is every time you try to create a single window for different sectors, what you now do is it takes us back to the challenges that we had in the last 15 years, whereby you had something for importers, you had another thing. So the best thing that has been done right now, obviously there's been, everything has been unified. It's willing buyer, willing seller, which is fantastic. So the point I'm just trying to make, and I'm relating it back to some things that came out about a month ago, whereby some minister was saying, oh, that, you know, they're going to ban the imports of some panels and things. And, you know, the truth about it, next day or a few days after, or maybe a week after, somebody else now says, no, it's not correct. And it goes back to what I'm trying to emphasize, that you need somebody who says, okay, you know what, before anybody says anything relating to whether it's imports, whether it's duties, whether it's, it must be sanctioned by the coordinating minister of the economy. Because what now happens, I mean, I'll give an example. I know that, and I know someone mentioned it, things relating to renewable, what you call the hybrid cars that you import, right? EVs, the first thing that is already happening from what I hear is that customs is already saying, oh, you know what, we've been told that XYZ has happened, so in relation to this waiver that you got, you don't have it. So the truth about it is that we know what is expected, to be done, but the truth about it is that people who need to do these things need to step up and basically own it. That's my view on that.
And do you owe this to some level of, will I say, desensitization within the government, considering that these are all government agencies that are supposed to control certain aspects of the economy, but it seems like there is no synergy between them. Agency A is saying something, Agency B is saying something else entirely. How do you think we can marry everybody together to then speak with one voice? Aside having, just like you had suggested, a coordinating minister of the economy, aside having that.
We have one. We have a coordinating minister of the economy. And I think we all know who that person is. But the point I'm trying to make is, if these agencies are under, I'm not trying to be political or anything, but I'm just trying to say that, I mean, there are a lot of things that can be done and should be done, right? And it's important that, especially when you have powers to do these things, we've seen it done before. And and the reason why I gave the example of Dr. Okonjo-Iweala was because at some point I remember that there was something that was happening between the Ministry of Finance and I think Customs or so. And like by the time she issued a circular, I mean, everybody sat straight. So the problem in Nigeria is not that we don't have laws, and it's not that we don't have policies. It's the will to do those things that are supposed to be done. That's all.
Thank you very much. So we've heard it, how it's not about having these policies. These policies do exist. How do we enact these policies? How do we ensure that in the process of enacting these policies, it's actually supporting the people it's supposed to support? We see what's currently going on with customs, importation. A whole lot of SMEs are having to deal with what I would tag as excess import duties on some of their goods and all that. And to think that our country, we are heavily powered by the SMEs. And really, there just has to be a way for us to move around this thing. So I will come quickly to Tobe here. And my question is, looking at the Apex Bank, the central bank now, what initiatives do you think will be crucial to stabilizing the foreign exchange and stabilizing it in a way that it does benefit the clean energy sector?
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the central bank, I think they have a lot of things which are in place already, to be honest with them. The implementation of these policies is often tied to where the liquidity lies. So the liquidity as we speak today for the SME space and even for the corporate space does not lie with the central bank. It lies with certain money makers. And will those money makers lose an opportunity to make profits because the central bank wants to impose certain policies? Definitely not. So I think the first thing the central bank needs to do is we need to build up our reserves so that we would have that confidence and strength to be able to dictate the tune in the markets. I mean, if you want to buy something from me and I don't need what you have because I have enough, I won't buy it. So the first thing is we need to work on our reserves, and we need to work on that fast. The second thing I think Doctor spoke about it is we need to see how to improve local content. We have so many things coming into this country that shouldn't be coming in. I was involved in a particular transaction of trying to, do some clean energy projects for a very large national corporate in this country. And we're going to import the things from Germany. We're going to raise funds locally. And after we raised the funds, we found out that some other guys who are playing in some other markets in Africa were going to come into this country and we're going to be completely out of the market. We're going to make a huge loss. And what happened? These parts were coming in from Germany. And the German government said, see, if you take a loan from us, we would give it to you at, because it's a German product. So at the end of the day, we had to meet the Nigerian banks and say, oh, we're sorry. Take back your money. Let's patronize the German, bank. So second thing for me is we need to see how to improve our local content so that when we are bringing in things to play in the clean energy space, we are not heavily dependent on things coming from outside. Then the third thing, which I would talk about, but with caution, is there is a whole lot of FX lying fallow in this country. It's sunk funds. It's funds in the hands of people who are not using it for anything else but for speculation. The central bank needs to work on things to disrupt speculation. Because what speculation has done is that people have huge FX deposits doing nothing. If we don't get those funds out to get into the markets, we'll still keep having this issue because the next set of people who make money in Naira would want to convert it to dollars to just keep doing nothing. We need to see how to shake up the system a little bit, and it's only the central bank that can do that. To make sure that these funds that are being kept doing nothing in the hands of everybody, both from governments to corporates to individuals, they get into the economy to help us rejig the economy and get things sorted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for our panelists. I would like us to take a look at innovation, innovating within the clean energy space. And I think I want to get thoughts from everyone, because part of the essence of this gathering is to inform and educate. And we know that when it comes to doing businesses in Nigeria, there's a whole lot of what I would call motivation that stems from hearing good and successful stories of people who have probably weathered the storm in that particular sector. So I want to hear from us if we have ideas of companies or people who have successfully innovated within the clean energy space, and what possible lessons are there to learn from this. Do you want to start?
I'll be glad to. I tend to talk a lot from experience as well, and some of the things that I've done. While not every project that I've been involved with has a public component to it, some of them have a business component to it. And one of the things which I think has helped, one of the projects which I advised and was a key part of, was the project of the Sterling Bank headquarters, where a 1 megawatt project was done to provide power for the building and was executed by Privida. And what made this project work, and it is key for long-term projects to work, is an offtake structure that is sustainable. And this was the first place that I learned this, because I remember that when this project was going to kick off, and I'll just share this very quickly, we had a CEO at Sterling Bank that had a vision that he wanted the bank to support alternative energy sources, which was using solar. With that, he engaged Privida, which was a company that I'm affiliated with on the side, to say, look, can you develop this project? You guys raised the financing for it, and we were able to implement the project, and off a long-term offtake contract, we were able to secure the financing, and the bank honors its part of it. Why am I saying this? There are key components to making any project work, and unless you line up those key parts, it is difficult to make any energy project work. The most important one is a reliable off-taker, a cheap source of financing, or preferably subsidized financing for a short period. Please note, I'm not a big fan of long-term subsidized financing of projects, because it makes everybody lazy. You need something that makes you want to get out of bed in the morning and know that you're being pushed, right? So, and that is there, and then reliable materials that you're using to execute your projects. I've had experiences where in the name of trying to reduce the cost of a project, we've gone to probably less standardized materials that we brought into the country, and within a short period of time, the materials failed. So I always tell people the cheapest is not always the most sustainable, or probably not the best, So that is one clear example of one that I've been involved with that has been successful. I've also had a project which, a lot of people do not think in this space, but I'm actively involved in a massive waste to energy project in Nigeria, which is going to be involving the Ekpe landfill. And I've had to learn a lot in 3 years on this project, because considering that this is the first type of this project that is coming to Nigeria to be executed, I've had to learn how you must align every part. It's a public-private project that we're looking at export financing, again, based on a Dutch support. We're looking at local offtake of power, which is probably in the range of 50 to 70 megawatts. So this is a massive project. And trying to tie all of this has had me, to be honest, waking up, and one day it fails, one day I take 2 steps forward, one day it fails, one day I take 2 steps forward. But with every one of these ones, I'm learning key components. And a big one that we tend to forget when we're thinking about external financing is the enabling environment that we create here. Let's not forget that we have an election cycle that is about 4 years old. Unfortunately, Nigeria is a place where you can lay as many policies as you want. When an election cycle comes in and the person who is elected has a different thought, it can literally abandon that entire location and go start its own. And this happens. So we need to create an environment where projects that are being implemented are literally almost gazetted, such that an election cycle, and I'm talking about bigger projects now, does not change the trajectory of this project. So I've faced things like this where when a new government comes in, you have to bring everybody again, even though you've spent significant amount on a project, you have to bring everybody again and convince the new regime why this project is important for either the state or the country or who you're doing it for. So I'll just keep quiet there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I guess, thank you. You've talked on the corporate level in terms of very big projects. Let me talk a little bit on the SME level, which I've been involved in. Incidentally, just this Sunday, a young man with a group of people who wants to produce EV vehicles and brought his proposal to me. Very fantastic proposal. But I had to turn them back because it was tech-driven and not business-driven. Money has to be business-driven because the returns and all those other things. So what were the things which made us turn them back? The first thing was in terms of the off-takers. So you want to produce 3,500 EV vehicles. My first question to him was, who would buy it? And it's like everybody in Nigeria needs EV vehicles. I said, no, it's not just like that.
You need to have a market for EV vehicles. Incidentally, I was with the Commissioner of Transportation of one of the states, and they signed a lot of contracts over the next 5 years with a couple of firms from different countries that are producing EV vehicles for them. So I told myself, why would they break a contract to create a new contract with you because you're a Nigerian firm? So the first thing I think we need to do as we build and as we try to grow in terms of the tech for climate issues would be, we need to create the right market for it. How do we create the right market for it? We need to have people who sponsor these efforts to a certain point until we begin to believe in our own. And why I say that is sometimes the quality that comes out of the local production may not be able to match some of the things which we are bringing at this phase. But it's a journey. We need to have sponsors for them. The next thing for me would be in terms of partnership. So as we spoke to this team, I asked them, we want to build a factory that will manufacture the vehicles. We want to build a factory that will take care of the electronic components. We want to build a factory. What about partnerships? We have on the other axis a whole lot of fabrication firms that all they need to do is create the right mold for what you want. Now you want to raise money to start creating factories to build all this. I mean, go and check out the big brands you have globally. They go into partnership to produce different things. One of the things I see locally is everyone wants to be a full-time champion in all spheres. No, it doesn't even work like that. So I have to tell you, if we raise these funds for you, there's no way you'll be able to break even in the time you are given. Because you want to produce everything, go into partnerships. And I think one of the things that will help us in country in trying to grow our climate tech environment is going into real partnership. Partnerships that will leverage on things that certain people have done. All you need to do to get what you need from them is just a little bit. All they needed was just to make a mold available, give them the shape of what you want. And once you give it to them, give them time, they'll produce the mold. And you don't need to bother about production. You are helping their business to grow, and you are solving the problem of production of the past. The third thing is, well, in finance we call it a transaction exposure. You want to do something in the country, you are raising it in FX. And as an investor, my worry is, what happens if anything should happen 5 days from now? So how do you back that exposure? And for most of these people who are producing things like the SME space, applying hedging, the cost of hedging is always difficult for them because they need all the money. So how do I invest in someone who I know will not put in place proper hedging or other mechanism to protect the fund when it comes to time for repayment? So I think I will just touch on those 3 things that I have on that. So the first thing for me is we need sponsors to build the brand until the brand is well sellable. The second thing is we need off-takers. I think 4 things. The third one will be partnerships. Nigerian firms need to know how to go into partnerships. I think we all want to do everything by ourselves, and it's becoming such a problem. And I think the final thing for me would be as firms go into this, they need to see how to protect themselves against this exposure. I mean, we've had a very nice 1 year, but we don't know what will happen again. I mean, we're trying to relax late last year, and suddenly the dollar, crashed again, and people were like, oh, what's going to happen? So that's lack of predictability in terms of our FX is also affecting, some of these tech firms. Thank you. Okay, it's interesting when Bolaji was speaking about pre-leader. I just remember they were actually advising on the other side, the financiers, BMC, when they raised the funding, it basically was supposed to be some kind of counterpart funding for RA. So you mentioned pre-leader, I said, okay, on the financing part, we worked on that. But I think lately we've also advised that we represent people more on the financing side. But there's a particular company called Cobos. We have a client that basically advise them in terms of equity investment in the business. And what that company does is it's like I call it a refrigerator, but it utilizes the sun. So initially it was set up in Europe basically for campers who basically be without electricity for upwards of 72 hours or 96 hours. And then they realized that, these are the kind of things that can actually be deployed in the market Nigeria, like Nigeria. Which basically means that when you have all those market women who either have farm produce, fish or whatever, those things on the basis of that they're able to store the produce because there's no electricity, and they basically will have a pay-as-you-go model. Now what that now does, the refrigerator can power not just the equipment, but it can also give them some form of power relating to charging their phones, putting on some fans and things like that. So it's, I think those are the two things that come to mind in relation to things we worked on. Again, I'm an advisor, so we can only work on the basis of what our clients bring to us. But I also think that more importantly on the finance part, I think one of the structures that we also worked on is whereby we found clients who have raised dollar income, from they basically raise dollars from their shareholders, and on the basis of that, obviously they need to make some imports. What they've done is, because CBN had put a rule as at last year, I think it was sometime in April or June, that people cannot basically raise funding on the basis of their dollar income. So what was done was to create some form of, there's no CBN person. But anyway, what was done was that the assets, the funds were transferred to an asset manager, and on the basis of that, it was used as security to basically raise local funding. So that was an interesting thing that we did last year with one of our clients.
Okay, so I think I'll just share a slightly different perspective around what Dr. Udari had talked about in terms of off-take and touching a bit on it around policy. So in our portfolio, what Fred has tried to do is essentially make sure that the projects are bankable, right? So it means that making sure that your projects are bankable, you also need to pay attention around project preparation and project development. Those two areas are very critical for the success of the overall success of any project. How you prepare your project and how you develop your project is important. The group of advisors here put together, one that is really two that are very critical in Nigeria is technical and legal. So you want to make sure that you have very strong people there. The ESG, you tend to know how to navigate that quickly, but technical side and the legal side, if you do not prepare it properly, you just sign agreements that keep you at the very short end of the stick. So for some projects, to ensure that there are concession agreements. So for the very first, hydropower plant that I was part of, they had a long-term concession agreement, 25 years, concession agreement on the Shuru, hydro, and it was something that, it wasn't just one big thing, but you made sure that all the details of that concession is thorough, that even though, government will change, that concession is not cancelled. You must also follow the legislative process in getting those concessions approved. You also need to get, an ISP, irrevocable standing payment order from the government. You also want to make sure you go through the process, because governments change, and that's how they tend to, cancel projects. So it's very important that you lay that foundation. Those are some of the elements that help the project be bankable. Having offtake agreements is fantastic, but then the terms of the offtake agreement is also important. Your commercials, how you navigate the tariffs. It's nice to start with having performance-based grants and grants, right? Result-based financing within the mix, but at the end of the day, you also want to make sure, particularly for the mini space, that you have embedded productive use in it. Those are some of the things we tend to look at that helps you to support, project preparation, project development. You also want to leverage, toolkits and resources that are available in the market, either from the REA, from just different resources that are available to people in the renewable energy space. Use that to help strengthen your projects to, rather than raising debts in FCY, foreign exchange. It's important that you look at how you get the local currency components of it. I think that will help to get the project to be sustainable, because you sign an agreement and you're done and you're borrowing dollars, and then you just realize that before the project comes alive, you're already out of the money. So you want to make sure that you go back and address those things. So, it's good to sign agreements, but take a step back and look at it again and again, and don't be in a hurry to just close. From our side as financiers, we also make sure that we streamline the processes too. We don't make it too difficult to try to explain, all the terms to you, making toolkits available to yourselves, that you understand what sort of financing arrangement that you're signing into. And then, partnerships is good and fantastic. Some of the partnerships that we've had today, supported by the UK SCDO, British International Investments, Shell Foundation, and I'll just say our development partners here, we have really supported, in scaling in the renewable energy space. So I think it's something that, developers should work with, and don't be afraid to get more people in the room to listen to you and speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's have a round of applause. So before we move on to closing thoughts from our panelists, we'd like to take questions from the audience. 3 questions, please. If we have questions, quickly. Okay. No questions. So we'll take closing thoughts from our panelists. Do you want to start as usual?
Oh, me? Okay, sure. I'll be glad to get started. And I think it's for us to take a perspective, and this is probably more the biggest enabler of the clean energy growth in Nigeria, which is the financial sector. We need to understand, first of all, that the returns from most clean energy projects are not going to be as high as the return from, I can say maybe randomly, I'll just say from an upstream or somebody who's importing diesel or something like that. Basically, there are lower returns for it. But we need to understand that the gap that the clean energy sector fills is almost a climatic part, where we need to assign a value to protecting the earth. And sometimes it is difficult to put a number to that value, but we need to understand that when you sit in a position where you can fund a project, not everything is about the dollars and the cents. It's about creating a cleaner climate. And basically that means that clean energy projects are not always going to be as profitable, but it behoves on us who are in a position to execute them and make sure that we do it because it helps to protect the earth.
I'll make a very quick comment about carbon credits as well, because I think this is really very important that people understand that carbon credits are earned based on something called additionality, which means a project would not be able to go alive without that delta. The carbon credit is not meant to create significant bonuses for an organization. So when financial organizations, and I agree with you when you say you do not want to base the viability on a project on carbon credits. No, we should not be, because the carbon credits are only earned when the projects by themselves are not able to be cash positive, but because there's an element of where it helps the earth. So I think as an industry, it takes all of us to come together to ensure that we grow this sector. Because the alternative that we have to growing the alternative energy sector is mostly based on fossil fuel. And yes, I am very active in fossil fuel, but I also understand that we should not be building an energy industry purely on fossil fuel, and that is why I invest very heavily into non-fossil based fuel. But it takes a whole community of us to support this and be intentional about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ognari. I think for me, I would just speak about two things. The first one is we need to enrich the small and medium parts of this business. It's becoming increasingly difficult for them to compete, especially when you have foreign bodies also pushing things into the country. I mean, it would have been good, for example, I read about a nice case of the guy in Maiduguri who produced EV vehicles. The government patronized him, and they're doing pretty well today, saving the climate, helping the economy. It's local grown. I mean, largely the parts which he uses for the vehicles are about 75% locally produced, which means they're also enabling the production part of the economy within the state. And it's a very good testament to what happens when people believe in the future of a country. So I think we need to have more use cases like that, where we enrich that small and medium scale business that will touch much more lives. I think that for me is where the problem I see in terms of the growth of this. The other thing is in terms of the technology or the innovation parts. We need to start having techatrons that talk about climate-based techs. I mean, we've done so much with finance-based techs, we've done so much with all these other things. We need to now start having things. It would be good to come into a room and we have young people building apps, building things, and getting awards or rewards for that. I mean, I get involved in a number of techatrons. Either we're sponsoring or I'm involved as a judge. I've hardly come into anywhere a climate-based tech has won in country. Most of the times where they win are foreign techatrons where they win. So we need to start looking into that. And to look into that, that means we need to rejig or change our education or awareness programs. It needs to get more grassroots. I was in the UK where we had a program and we were talking about, the climate. And, they are so worried about the future of the UK, what will happen. People are worried about generations to come. I don't think in Nigeria most people are bothered. We're just short-sighted most times in our thinking. And that's also affecting how we educate people. So we need to work on our education. I don't think we should even start at the higher institutions. It needs to get ingrained somewhere from maybe the high schools, the secondary schools. People need to start talking about the climate, the future of Nigeria, what will happen. We have nations which are deciding to start building cities, inside the ground to protect their nation. What are we doing for crime? This climate tech. We're having lots of erosion and all that. So I think we need to start having more awareness programs and more education that talks about the climate and the future. Sustainability things that needs to be ingrained in people needs to start at a younger stage. Thank you.
Okay, for me, just two quick things. First one is policy implementation. I mean, let's just get on that. If we're able to do more that way, if there's that drive, there's the focus, narrowing it down that, these things that we put down, we say we'll do it, we get it done. I think that we'll see that the needle will move far quicker than we all assume. And I think the other one will be that, again, this may be a bit controversial, but I mean, we all know that in Nigeria, the only sector that really has funding that everybody is looking at is pensions. So if there is a way in which there's some form of an incentive that can be given to pension funds to basically invest in this area, I mean, I think it's something that can be looked at. I mean, those are my two quick wins on that.
Thank you. So you bring me to my, I would say, concluding points. InfraCredit's local currency guarantees really attract funding from pension funds. So that enables them put monies in, guaranteed instruments that are green, climate aligned type of project. So it gives access to that. But then what also gives the pension fund confidence in putting those investments is really how you organize, how you structure your business, how you develop yourself. How have you put yourself together from a corporate structure, right? Most times what we see in the renewable energy space is that you evolve from, an eco, you've been incubated. After that, you just want to do, projects here and there. But you have to come with the mindset that you're trying to scale, and then you must be well structured. You must start thinking around putting policies, systems, and processes in place to help you to be structured and attract, the kind of funding that you require into your firm. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We've come to the end of this panel discussion. I'd like to say a very big thank you to our panelists and, of course, to the organizers of this summit. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, an ample round of applause to our panelists and our moderator. As I take a picture, out of the many things to learn and love about this section, one thing I love is how relatable and how experiential the insights we're drawing from real life experiences. Once again, please let's give it up for our panelists. Amazing. This is the clap for those Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen. This is a $1 billion picture. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at your right, which is my left, you can see 3 beautifully parked cars, one of which I know I'll be going home with by faith today. And I want to let you know that the man behind its presence today will be coming up in a few seconds to give a presentation. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I welcome to the stage for a brief presentation the CEO and Chairman of Saglev Electromobility Co. Nigeria Limited, Dr. Sam Benga-Falaye. Please put your hands together as I welcome him to the stage. The harder you clap, the higher your chances of going home with one of these cars. So please put your hands together, clap really well. Please, let's keep clapping as he comes. Let's keep clapping as he comes. Let's keep clapping as he comes. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Well, we'll take this class back with us. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. All right. Thank you all so much. I want to congratulate the Clean Climate Hub. This is a fantastic meeting already. We cannot wait to see what exploits are going to be unleashed in the coming years. So I just wanted to hit on a few topics just as an introduction. I am Sam Benga-Falaye. It seems that these medical doctors cannot sit down in their medical corner anymore. But there was another medical originally a doctor. I was trained here in Nigeria. I lived about 35 years in the United States, where I specialized in practice for so many years. But I've always been interested in engineering and climate change. So 2012, I drove my first electric vehicle. I bought an electric vehicle from Tesla, and it changed my life because I said to myself, oh my God, people are missing something. This thing is going to change the world. Unfortunately, everybody didn't share that opinion, but it turns out that I started worrying since then. I got involved in a number of other entrepreneurial endeavors, but my mind kept coming back home. How can we use this to improve the country and emerging markets generally? And I'm saying this so you can understand exactly how we started inside. Eventually, 8 years ago, I said, look, I'm tired of sticking needles inside people and opening people's abdomens. Let's see what we can do with this renewable project. And that's where Silence started. Incidentally, because I bought into the electric vehicle vision, I invested in Tesla when nobody believed in Tesla, right? When Tesla was $40. And technically, that is how we gave birth to this company, because without that, we would not be able to fund this company. This is a very expensive venture. So today, because I don't want to bore you, today we have been building and is now already producing electric vehicles and assembly plants that is manufacturing 16 different electric vehicles in Ikorodu, Lagos, Nigeria. We had to do this quietly because there's no point coming to you 5 years ago and telling you we are going to build an assembly plant in 5 years. You guys will look at us and say, these people must be smoking whatever they smoke in the US. But we said, well, we're going to do this, then come to you and show you. So very soon, we're going to be doing a few things. One of them is invite the public to come and inspect and visit the assembly plant. You will have to drive 1.5 hours from here, but it's in the outskirts of Ikorodu. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to put a live cam in the factory, so you can go on our website and actually watch and see what is happening. These 3 cars here are products assembled in Lagos, Nigeria. So again, look, at the end of the day, we can complain and talk about different things about Nigeria. You've got to understand, if you buy a Mercedes-Benz today, that Mercedes-Benz, while you might understand it as a German car, is probably only 20% German. And I say that to make us understand, you can go to Google and Google will tell you how to manufacture an electric car, right? So why are we starting to manufacture an electric vehicle from scraps on the street when the whole world knows how to make an EV? You just have to partner with people worldwide who are doing this and make it happen here. Again, when we started, nobody even believed that this was possible. So funding for us was out of the question. We just simply had to sacrifice our personal funds and do this. So they have actually asked me to shed some light on specifically an overall view of how investment and the risking of it can encourage entrepreneurs like myself to engage in the climate sector. So a couple of things that I want to look. The climate sector itself is expensive, but having spent the funds in it, the rewards are significant enough because you have to consider that you're also saving the earth. So that always makes it make sense. But it's expensive. And what are the ways that investing in the climate sector can be of benefit to people like me? Number one, it is very important to really look at public-private partnerships and co-investment. The climate and clean tech is just not going to move until we start focusing on that. If you have an idea, you have a project, while you're looking for funds, go look for the government bodies and people to join, because very often the fact that you had a buy-in from a public sector makes a private investor believe in you. So that's a critical thing, public-private partnerships. Now, credit guarantees. The experts here have talked about a lot of things. I'm not going to go too much into it, but credit guarantees, foreign exchange hedging. Let me give you an example. For us, it's always very interesting when we sell a vehicle and we get the dollars. But it's actually harder for us to wire those funds from here to buy the SKD kits, because these cars come to us in a kit where the car is about 50% complete. It's actually harder for us to wire the funds back to the company, our OEM partner, which is Dongfeng, because SideLev is the direct partner for Dongfeng for electric vehicles for the entire African continent. It's actually easier for us to just wire those funds from the United States. So while we said, well, we're going to come here and start doing this, then we hit the shocker. We have millions of naira in the bank. And what we've done smartly is, well, we're going to convert this and hold it in dollars. But it is very difficult to wire this money even to our bank. So foreign exchange hedging is very important. Sovereign-backed green funds, I'm not going to go into it, but you got to understand that going to approach a DFI, going to approach a big sovereign fund when you are not ready, it's not helpful to you. You have to be ready. Don't waste their time. And then don't go and introduce yourself to them when you are not ready. Get ready. Because now they know, oh, that guy is not really, no, you don't want to do that. Get ready first and understand that if you want to go to a sovereign fund, a DFI, or, you know, even AFC, please understand that AFC is not trying to put money directly in your bank account. Find a local bank partner. There are banks, they are Keystone, and I'm going to shout out to them because they are a bank that is reaching out to people like us in the climate industry, and they are not joking around. They have met with us many times, and they are not playing. So, yeah, so it is important for you to realize that you need to go find a local partner, then go to whoever is finding. The other thing is that, listen, if you're looking for $1 million, then please don't waste the time of a DFI. You know, grow at some point when you introduce yourself to them. These guys are looking to write big tickets. Now, if you have a group where you want to get a bunch of different entrepreneurs together and you guys are looking for $10 million, maybe that might work, okay? So I'm just throwing out a few nuggets here that can be important. Now, how can we make energy solutions affordable, renewable? And this is not just in electric mobility, in you know, solar and you know, even solar farms, mini grids. First thing you should try to do is you have to make sure you localize your value chain. Okay, in Nigeria it's a little bit limited, but let me say, while we're busy here complaining about one thing or the other, we have to realize this. There are at least 2 companies that manufacture solar panels successfully in Nigeria. So if you have a solar project, you need to go talk to them. Instead of saying you're going to spend that valuable foreign exchange getting solar panels from wherever you're going to get it from. So always localize your value chain. Now, we know there's a limit to what technically we improve, but don't forget that there was a time those companies were not making solar panels. Now, those same companies are starting to assemble inverters. And very soon, those same companies are going to be looking at battery storage. So try to localize your value chain, you know, when you're developing your country. Whatever you can get locally, do it. One area that people always forget is don't forget to recycle. There are many inverters out there that broke down many years ago that you can recycle, refurbish, and reuse, whereas they were using lead-acid batteries. Now you can use lithium batteries. Somebody's going to buy that inverter from you, so don't forget about recycling. Again, in terms of what payment formula do you want to use as an entrepreneur, you need to adopt the leasing or pay-as-you-go models. Listen, if you want to, let me give you one example. So if you are an Uber driver today, ride-hailing driver today, and you are driving, say, a mid-size to a large, maybe Toyota Corolla, Camry, it's going to cost you about 30,000 naira a day just for petrol. You haven't maintained the car, you haven't repaired anything. In the electric vehicle, we have products. Actually, that particular vehicle over there probably will not cost you more than 4,000 to 5,000 naira to charge a day. Big premium. So right now, today, we have well over 100 ride-hailing drivers who want electric vehicles. And as such, these drivers need to find a way to pay. They want the EV, but they certainly need financing. So, you know, time is fast spent. Reach out to us if you want to discuss. This thing is here, and we're excited to be able to be here. And, you know, cars are available, and we're just really excited for the Clean Climate Hub for allowing us to participate. And certainly we know that the subsequent years of this summit will be even more amazing than this one. Thank you very much.
Let's give it up once again for the CEO of SAGLEF, please. Let's put it up for Dr. Sam. Thank you so much, sir. If you listened keenly, you would know that he is a man with bold visions and perhaps someone I may call a silent executor as well. And he mentioned something about Tesla that makes me want to test if we actually listen to yesterday's conversation. So the question now is, what kind of company is Tesla? No, hold on, what kind of company is Tesla? You can give a chorus answer. What kind of company is Tesla? Is it not a car company, car manufacturing company? What kind of company is it? It's a carbon credit company. Amazing. Please, you can celebrate yourself. At least it shows that you listened keenly to yesterday's conversations. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving on to our third panel section. We are moving on to our third panel conversation for today. And ladies and gentlemen, as clean energy and climate tech continues to drive innovation, one crucial question we must begin to ask ourselves is, how do we support and scale the startups leading this transformation? For many of the startups, traditional financing models simply may not work, and that is where micro-lending comes in, offering flexible, accessible funding to early-stage companies, pushing the boundaries of clean energy and climate solutions. And I'm super delighted to let you know that in our next session, we are going to be exploring the micro-lending opportunities and challenges for clean energy and climate tech startups. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I welcome to the stage our esteemed panelists. First, we have the Chief Executive Officer of Circular Economy Innovation Partnership. She is Dr. Natalie Bench. Please, let's put our hands together as she comes on stage. Thank you. She's looking rather radiant today. Please, let's keep putting our hands together as she comes on stage. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. We also have joining her the CEO and MD of SANEF Limited. He is Uche Uzebo. Please, let's put our hands together as he comes on stage. Please, let's put our hands together. I'm sure will be joined soon. We also have the CEO of Volition Cap. She is Ma'am Shubomi Plumtree. Please let's put our hands together as she comes on stage. She is ready for us. You can see it by the strides of her steps. If you want to make some noise, please make some noise. Amazing. Also joining us on stage is the CEO of Rivi. We have Dami Olawoye. Please put your hands together as I welcome him on stage. And finally, we have our moderator who will be driving this panel conversation. She is Mariam Abdularam. Please let's put our hands together as I invite her on stage. She's smiling. Please let's put our hands together so she smiles more. Amazing. Okay, amazing. Amazing. So we have Mariam Abdularam, and she is the CFO of Portfolio. Please let's put our hands together. Let's keep clapping as she comes. Once again, we have Mr. Dami Olawoye, who is the CEO of Rivi. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I leave you in the hands of our able moderator, Madam Mariam Abdularam. Thank you so much. Please, let's put our hands together for our panelists today.
Thank you for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, my distinguished panelists, members of the audience, and our hosts represented by Cleantech Hub and AFC, as well as our sponsors. So it's my immense pleasure and honor to be here today to moderate this important discussion on microlending for clean energy and climate tech startups on opportunities and challenges. And before I dive into the Q&A segment of this session, I'd like to set the scene a little bit with some reflections around how I see that Nigeria, not just in Nigeria, but across emerging markets, clean energy and climate tech startups are in a unique position to catalyze environmental change and economic inclusion. However, the challenge associated with this is related to specifically access to finance, and not just access to finance, but the flexibility of the financing and as well as the sizing of the financing. And in my interactions within finance and investment and within the climate tech ecosystem, I've come to find that the solution to this lies with three things, really. The way that we view risk, the way we design lending products, as well as the way we deploy digital solutions. So having said that, I'd like to dive right into the Q&A segment, and I look forward to exploring how we can unlock capital for entrepreneurs so that they can build this low carbon, resilient climate environment that we so urgently need. So I'll start with yourself, Shubomi. How do you think that digital lending platforms and alternative financing models such as crowdfunding, revenue-based financing, can enhance access to capital for climate startups? Before you start, can I just ask that you all maybe elaborate a bit more on what you do for the benefit of for the audience?
Okay, thank you. So I'm the CEO of Volition Cap. We're an asset management company, and in conjunction with our partner company, Opportunic Global Fund, we have a multi-million-dollar private credit fund for entrepreneurs. Looking at digital platforms, so there's a brilliant platform called Installer, run by someone I know called Chinwe. And what it does is that it aggregates green companies who are looking for installers or looking for technicians, and they're spread across, they represent 36 states of the Federation. Now, imagine if that kind of digital platform had a financing module built in,
because they already do first-level due diligence on credible green energy projects. So they've done the first-level due diligence. They're spread across 36 states of the country. Now, assuming they had a finance module embedded in that digital platform, it means that those green energy companies will not only look for technicians or look for installers on the platform, but they can access finance. So they can literally just click on a link and access finance for some of those projects. So rather than paying out of pocket for their projects, they simply access private credit through such a platform. So in terms of digital platforms, crowdfunding, private credit, we need aggregators, platforms that are aggregators, such that we're not having to talk to individual clean energy companies, one by one. We literally just go to an aggregation platform that is already doing the work, and we just plug it. So it's a plug-and-play module. We come with the credit, we come with the financing, and they handle the first level due diligence and the operations at the back end. So that's kind of like a practical example of how that can work.
Thank you very much. I'll move over to you, Natalie. And my question to you is, how do you think the role of microfinance institutions and impact investors can get involved in bridging the funding gap for climate entrepreneurs, and what incentives are needed to encourage their participation?
Thanks. So first, my name is Natalie Bench. I run an organization called Ecosystem Building Organization for Circular Economy, which in the Nigerian context is focused mainly on waste management and recycling as well. Not a finance professional by trade. So I'll try to answer this question in terms of incentivizing these kinds of institutions to play a bigger role. And when we think of, there's multiple players, when we think about the recycling value chain, there's multiple players from the smaller, collectors, in very many aggregation. And where we see some great work is around basically larger companies providing that bridge financing. That I think they're innovating in very, very interesting ways to serve that community. This is, of course, low to no interest for these kinds of collectors, but it certainly builds up the ecosystem. The other area, I think for all the reasons probably we've discussed, banks have not been playing a significant role in terms of providing the financing. So I won't go into too much detail about that. Where we see the investment really working in terms of both parties is really these corporate kinds of partnerships where either a company starts off with grants, working with a corporate partner, or it's supplying raw material to a corporation that then provides the financing at these better rates. So these are not necessarily technologies or digital, but it's where we see the greatest innovation, the greatest way that businesses and ecosystems are thriving here in terms of creating access to financing.
Thank you, Natalie. Do you think perhaps tax incentives can help also as an incentive to encourage the participation of some of these impact funds and banks?
In Nigeria?
Anywhere really.
Yes, I think that's right. You have the whole philanthropy movement in the United States based on tax incentives. It's just like as with anything, the devil is in the detail in terms of how A, if it's international, how you incentivize investment into Nigeria, and B, in the Nigerian environment, we've just seen too many times discussions around incentives that don't materialize or not implemented or enforced in a way that really enables that kind of investment to reach entrepreneurs. So of course, it's something we support, but it's It's just around making sure that it really works for the right stakeholders. And I think from that sense, we're always, it's like look at the businesses and think about enabling them and what kind of structures can enable them first before the grand ideas in many ways can be very helpful.
Thank you. And I don't know if any of the panelists might want to add to other incentives that they think might be that might help some of these financial institutions to participate. Okay. All right, I'll move on to the next question. By the way, please feel free to contribute to a question if you have a pertinent opinion or thoughts on the matter. So I'll move over to yourself, Danny. And my question to you is,